Have you ever asked yourself, why does it still hurt? Why, even when everything in your life looks stable from the outside, do you feel like something is missing? Like there's a quiet ache pressing down on your chest? A silent tension that doesn't go away? Maybe you've tried it all. Meditation, advice from friends, positive affirmations, even pretending everything's fine just to get through the day. And yet pain lingers, like a shadow at your heels, silent but ever present. Here's a truth most people won't tell you. The suffering you feel, it doesn't come from the world outside. It comes from within, from a part of yourself you've forgotten, abandoned, or refused to face. Carl Jung once said, "What you do not bring to consciousness returns as fate." That's not just a quote, it's a warning. And it's exactly what's happening to you. Life has been trying to show you something, but you've stopped listening. You run, you distract yourself. You chase pleasure, drown in toxic relationships, numb yourself with entertainment, work, addiction, anything to avoid that feeling. But it doesn't go away, does it? Because pain does not want to be ignored. It wants to be understood. And this is not a typical self-help video. I'm not here to hand you a few feel-good phrases or magic affirmations. I'm here to provoke you, to challenge you, to confront you with what you hide, even from yourself. So give me a few minutes of your time. That's all I ask. And I will show you something most people never dare to look at: why you suffer, and how that suffering can finally end. Not through tricks or avoidance, but through awareness. Maybe you're at the edge right now. Maybe you're smiling in public but screaming in silence. Or maybe you've grown so used to the pain that it just feels like part of who you are. Whatever your story is, I need you to hear this. Suffering endures not because you deserve it, but because you haven't yet faced its root. And that root isn't out there in the world. It's buried inside you. Carl Jung spent his life exploring that inner darkness, the unlit terrain of the soul. He believed only those brave enough to descend into their own shadows could ever truly find light. So if you're ready, really ready, then stay with me. Because once you understand what I'm about to show you, you will never see yourself the same way again. You think you suffer because of others, your partner, your parents, your job, your finances, the weight of society's expectations. And yes, those things hurt. They matter, but they are not the source. Not really. The deepest kind of suffering, the one that drains you quietly, that lives behind the fake smile and polite answers, comes from disconnection, from separation between who you are and who you pretend to be. Jung said the greatest tragedy of the soul is to live a life that isn't yours. And that's what most of us are doing, living out scripts written by other people. Since childhood, you've been taught how to behave, what to say, who to be. You learn to be polite, agreeable, invisible. You silenced your curiosity, your anger, your desire to scream, your dreams that didn't fit the mold, and slowly you drifted away from yourself. Until one day you couldn't recognize the person in the mirror. You became a character, a persona built for survival. And now you carry a pain you can't name. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It saps your energy. It dulls your joy. It shows up as anxiety, as insomnia, as emptiness, as rage that has no clear target. It's the pain of betrayal, not from others, but from yourself. The soul knows when it's living a lie. It always knows. So it screams, not with words, but with symptoms. That nervous stomach when you're around someone fake. That tightness in your chest when you stay in a job you hate. That fatigue when you fake happiness again and again and again. These aren't malfunctions. They're messages. They're your soul begging you to stop betraying yourself. Make no mistake. It's not failure that hurts you. It's the illusion of who you think you should be. It's not loneliness that wounds you. It's the fear that you no longer know who you are when no one else is around. And it's not them who damage you the most. It's you. Every time you abandon your truth to be accepted. Every time you swallow your no to be liked. Every time you dim your light to keep someone else comfortable. that kind of pain, doesn't go away with time. It roots itself deeper until you think it's normal, but it's not. And here is the most crucial realization. The pain is not a curse. It's a signal. It's your inner self trying to lead you back to what's real. Back to the truth you buried to survive. Carl Jung believed that pain is the beginning of transformation, that every wound is an invitation, not to escape, but to return, to come back home, and that journey begins the moment you stop fighting the symptoms and start facing the cause. Because if you truly want to stop suffering, you need to look into the place you fear most. You need to confront the shadow. You say you want peace. You say you want healing. But you keep fighting the symptoms: anxiety, depression, rage, guilt, shame. You treat these things like enemies, like flaws to be fixed, feelings to be erased. But the truth is, they are not your enemies. They are messengers. And the real enemy? The one that manipulates you from within. That's the shadow. Carl Jung called the shadow the unconscious part of the self. Everything you've repressed, hidden, denied, or refused to accept about yourself. It's the part you locked away. Your shadow holds your suppressed emotions, your buried rage, your repressed desires, your quiet envy, your hidden wounds. It holds the parts of you that society told you were too much or not enough. And here's the danger. The more you ignore the shadow, the more it controls you. Think back. The last time you lashed out unexpectedly, sabotaged something good in your life, or kept repeating patterns you swore you'd break. That wasn't a coincidence. That was your shadow acting out from the basement of your psyche. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in sabotage, in emotional chaos, in patterns you can't explain, and as long as it remains unconscious, it will keep directing your life, and you will keep calling it fate. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Think about that. Maybe it's not karma. Maybe it's not bad luck. Maybe it's just your shadow screaming for your attention, but facing the shadow takes courage. Because it means seeing yourself without the mask. It means admitting that you're not just a victim, that there's a part of you, yes, even you, that has caused pain, that has lied, that has manipulated, that has destroyed things it also loved. But here's the truth. The shadow isn't evil. It's human. It's you. The parts you couldn't be or weren't allowed to be, and the shadow doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to be seen, heard, integrated. Jung didn't believe in erasing the shadow. He believed in transforming it into awareness, into strength, into wholeness. Because what you reject weakens you, and what you accept sets you free. So ask yourself, what have you buried? What are you still pretending not to feel? What truth about yourself have you never dared to face? Because knowing the shadow is just the beginning. What you do with it, that's what changes everything. In the next part, we'll talk about how to begin that process, how to stop intellectualizing and start healing, how to walk into the fire and come out whole. So now you know the truth. You've seen the shadow, you've heard its voice, and now comes the hardest part, the confrontation, because awareness isn't enough. Understanding is the first step. But real healing demands action, honest, raw, often uncomfortable action. You're being asked to do what most never do, walk through your own internal hell with your eyes wide open. Jung made it clear. A path to the self is not a straight line, it's a descent into chaos, into darkness, into the unknown. And no, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's walking forward even while afraid. It's tearing off the mask. It's dropping the victim narrative. It's standing in the mirror and saying, yes, I am both light and shadow, and I'm ready to stop running. But what does this look like in practice? It means listening deeply to your own body, to the signals it's been screaming while your mind tried to ignore them. That sinking feeling in your gut when you say yes to something that betrays you. The tightness in your chest when you tolerate what you should walk away from. The exhaustion that floods you every time you fake being okay. These are not defects, they're data. Your body is the voice of your unconscious, and it never lies. So start there. Small steps, radical honesty. Write. Every day, write as if no one will read it. Let the words spill out like confessions. What you're ashamed of, what you're afraid of, what you've never said out loud. Because what is hidden hurts, and what is expressed heals. And don't do it alone. Find a guide, a psychologist, a mentor, someone who can help you translate the language of your own psyche, because this isn't about venting, it's about decoding. Jung said, the unconscious is not a garbage dump. It's a living intelligence. It doesn't want to punish you, it wants to teach you, but only if you listen without judgment, without defense, without ego. Want to stop suffering, then stop running. Because as long as you run, it will chase you. But when you stop and look it in the eye, the pain begins to transform. And here's the truth no one told you. Your pain isn't your enemy. It's your portal. It's not there to break you. It's there to wake you. In the final section, we'll go to the other side of pain, what it reveals, what it builds, and how you finally come home to yourself. There comes a moment, quiet, barely noticeable, when something shifts inside. It doesn't feel like fireworks or enlightenment. It feels like stillness, like a breath you didn't know you were holding, finally released. This is the moment when you stop fighting yourself, when you stop chasing perfection, when you stop apologizing for your own existence, and for the first time you feel whole. But what does that really mean? It means you stop rejecting the parts of you that don't look spiritual or polished. You embrace your flaws, your triggers, your darkness. You stop trying to be lovable and start being real, because healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you were before the world told you to change. Carl Jung called this individuation, not becoming special but becoming whole, no longer divided, no longer edited, no longer fragmented. And when you reach this point, you no longer fear your pain because it no longer controls you. You see now the suffering wasn't the enemy, it was the invitation. Every breakdown, every crisis, every tear was not a punishment. It was a teacher. It stripped away the lies. It burned the illusions. It destroyed the masks. And in that destruction, you found truth. And this truth doesn't promise comfort. It doesn't guarantee easy days. But it does give you something greater, freedom. Because now you choose. You choose what to tolerate. You choose where your energy goes. You choose who enters your space. You say no without guilt. You say yes without fear. You stop shrinking. You stop settling. You stop abandoning yourself for the sake of peace, because now you are peace. But this is where many stop. The pain is gone. The patterns have shifted. Life begins to flow, and they pause, thinking the journey is over. But Jung warned of this illusion, because healing is not the final destination. It is the beginning of responsibility. Now that you've returned to yourself, what will you do with the light you've reclaimed? That's the final question. You're no longer asleep. You can no longer pretend. You've seen too much, felt too much, remembered who you are, and now life will demand more of you, more truth, more courage, more presence. This journey, this individuation, is not a single choice. It is a daily commitment to live awake, to speak honestly, to act with intention, to love without losing yourself, to create without compromising your soul. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to decide every day to return to yourself, to walk toward the truth even when it's hard, to stay present even when it hurts, to stop waiting for the world to change, and start being the one who has. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And now that privilege is yours. This suffering wasn't your enemy. It was your initiation. You weren't broken. You were becoming. You didn't need fixing. You needed to remember, and now you do. Now take this awareness and live it. Don't keep it in your mind. Let it flood your choices. Let it shape your days. Let it ripple outward into how you love, how you lead, how you live, because knowledge without action is just another escape. So here's your question. What truth in this video shook you the most? What part of you did it awaken? Comment below. Make it real. Anchor it in language. Make it a promise to yourself. Because you didn't come this far just to hear the truth. You came to live it. See you in the next video.